Downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
You know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, you've gone and done it. You friggin' downloaded another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. I'm your host, Andy Evans, and you know who else is hosting this show. Unless you've been living under a friggin' rock, you need to crawl out from under it, get yourself a damn clue, because you know who is joining, as he always does, for another momentous Buckeye Leafcast. And this one, folks, special edition. We've only got about 2 days left until the Buckeyes take on the Huskies in the Rose Bowl. And here to talk about it alongside myself is the man, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Mr. Evans, good day, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. How you doing?
Oh my God, I am doing so great. Today, we've got some sun. We've got upper 50s, low 60s here in Raleigh, North Carolina, greater area.
Oh.
It's pretty nice out. We've been getting a lot of rain. December has been a really rainy month, and I live like basically on a lake. I love to walk the dogs around the lake every day.
Oh, wow.
And it's been weeks since I've done it, because even when it's not raining, and I go to try it, it's just freaking soup. You know, I like sink to the ankle going on these like nature trails or on concrete,
what kind of soup?
You know, it's swimming around the lake. So
what kind of soup?
But sun today.
Is it tasty? Is it tomato bisque kind of soup? Chicken noodle?
It is cloudy with a chance of meatballs today.
Nah. Hey, anytime there's meatballs in a soup, that's the best of both worlds right there. I'll take that.
Yep.
Yeah, but sir, so Ohio State Buckeyes, 6th ranked, 12-1, Big Ten champion Ohio State Buckeyes, Chris, on New Year's Day, 5 o'clock, live and in color, Pasadena, for the Granddaddy of Them All, the Rose Bowl, taking on the 10-3, 9th ranked Washington Huskies, who are the Pac-12 champions. And this is a game, Chris, that it's going to be interesting for a couple of different reasons. We already know some things that are going on, some things we don't, like, is Dwayne Haskins going to go? Is he going to stay? Kind of like the old Clash song, you know, should he stay? Should he go? Of course, everybody wants him to stay. I think everybody pretty much knows that he's going to go. He hasn't made the decision yet. A couple of guys, though, that we do know are leaving early, like Draymond Jones and Mike Weber. They've already announced their decisions that they are headed to the NFL, or at least they're going to throw their names into the hat to get drafted. Well, we know Draymond Jones is surely going to be one of those guys. Mike Weber, maybe not. We'll have to see what happens with him, but he's going to take his chances nonetheless. But they're both coming back to play in this football game. But one thing we do know for certain, Chris, is that there is one guy, this is going to be his last game ever for Ohio State, and that is, of course, head coach Urban Meyer. After this, Chris, we are never going to see him roaming the Ohio State sidelines again. At least you don't think you're going to see him roaming the sidelines again. Who knows? Maybe we coax him back if Ryan Day doesn't work out. You know, give Urban a few years off, get the health issues sorted out, or at least taken care of as best as possible. Ryan Day doesn't work out, and Urban comes back. What do you think about that?
Hey, Mac Brown just came out of retirement,
dude.
You know, hey, I'm still wanting to see Tressel
possible, man. Jimmy
rewrite his final chapter. You know, I'm
God.
Like, come on, somebody give Tress a chance. I don't think Tressel wants to come back.
I was going to say, yeah,
he would have done it by now if he wanted to, because surely somebody would have, his show cause is over, and somebody would hire him. I mean, the guy's got 5 national titles, you know. I don't think you would have a problem getting a job, even at his age. Just have Tressel come in for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And, turn your program around, and then maybe try to pull a Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day type scenario where he turns your program around and has like a coach in waiting that he's grooming to just keep the machine, going down the tracks now that he's got it up and running.
Yeah.
But I don't think he wants to, but I've always wanted him. I'm like, man, I love Tress. He really turned the program around.
Yeah.
And, his job was much harder than Meyer's because Meyer was 12-0 his first year because Tressel just handed him a plum group of players, right?
Oh, sure.
Those kids that Urban's recruiting, like basically couldn't remember a time when Ohio State didn't own Michigan, because Tressel was 9-1. So I would love to see him come back. Now, here's the interesting thing. As the highest winning percentage of any active coach, third time all time, behind only like guys that coached 60 years ago, like Newt Rockne and the like.
I was getting ready to say, I think
people.
Newt Rockne and Frank Leahy, they're the only two that have a better winning percentage. And that was just a little more than 50 years ago. I mean, we're talking Newt Rockne literally was like 100 years ago at Notre Dame.
Yeah, so it's like, and it's not even like the level of parity now is not like back then. It was like Notre Dame was so much ahead of basically everybody they faced. It's just not even funny. So now, I mean, it's like,
considering you only had probably 30 schools like actively playing football. I mean, I think you had way more than that. But when Ohio State in 1912 is taking on the Ohio Auxiliary Marching Band. I mean, seriously, like some of these, like Army Medical Reserve, Ohio.
They literally did play the Little Sisters of the Poor back then.
They did. They absolutely did. I mean, they were playing Otterbein and Case Western Reserve, and but back then they were getting beat by some of those teams.
Well, right, but I mean now it's like literally like a MAC school. If you have a bad game, you could lose to a MAC school. I mean, it's like Michigan lose to App State. Like not even a Division I program, you know what I mean? Yeah. There's a lot of parity now. But so he's got the best active winning percentage. Do you know who has the second best active winning percentage?
Active winning, Nick Saban.
Chris Peterson.
No shit.
Next active. I mean, this is the one thing.
I should have guessed that because we're talking about the friggin' Rose Bowl, or we will here in a second.
Hey, that was a pretty good guess. I think, active, Saban's probably in the top 5.
I guess
sure, but I would assume.
Well, and I guess if you look at it though, I mean, Nick Saban did. I mean, he was good at Michigan State, time. But he's been
been a monster the last,
basically,
10 or so years, but since he went to LSU, he started to like take it to the next level at LSU, and then has just been otherworldly at Alabama. So, but I'm sitting here, I'm looking, Urban Meyer, legendary coach, phenomenal record when his teams got more than 1 week to prepare. So, be it a going to a bowl game, or you've got a bye week, or it's like the first game of the season. Urban Meyer, when he has more than 1 week to prepare, is 49-4 in his career. 49-4. So as stellar as his winning percentage is, it's actually even higher when he's got a week, more than 1 week to prepare. So he's really good when you give him time to just concentrate on the game. But you're going against another guy who, like if I was Gene Smith, like, I would have been giving Chris Peterson an interview I wouldn't have just handed. I mean, because let's face it, Chris Peterson's resume is about 1,000 times better than Ryan Day's. At this point, most likely Chris Peterson is the better. Washington is going to have a better head coach next year than Ohio State, most likely. Now maybe Ryan Day comes out and proves that he can be like the better than the guy that's going to have the best winning percentage of all active coaches. Because next year when Urban's gone, Chris Peterson's going to be number 1 of the active coaches. But it's not very likely. You know what I mean? It's just not likely. So we're going against a darn good coach right now. And he's also got, the same amount of time to prepare for Urban as Urban has to prepare for him. And this is a guy who's known for kind of throwing out the kitchen sink, for trick plays. He's got wide receivers throwing passes for touchdowns in the Apple Cup. And, I expect Ohio State to see everything from Washington. And now I'm not saying that I expect Ohio State to lose, but this, if Ohio State doesn't come out ready to play, they definitely could lose this game. So they don't have the huge coaching advantage in this game like they do typically, and so it'll be real interesting. They do have the talent advantage that they typically have. I think there's definitely a talent gap between these two teams.
On paper, I would say Ohio State, without a doubt, is the quote unquote more talented team, but just to your point, you're throwing out all these stats and pumping up Chris Peterson. This is a damn good football coach, and this is a guy who knows how to win football games and get his troops motivated.
Yeah. So but Washington came into the season preseason number 6, and ended the season after the Pac-12 championship game number 9. So this is no slouch. I mean, now there's a big difference between the teams in the top, 3, 4, 5 than there is in the bottom, in the top 5 of the top 10 and 6 through 10. But this is this team is not a slouch. So.
Well, and here's the thing, Chris, and I don't know about you. I mean, I talked, to a few friends, and saw stuff on social media as well. There were some people, and in fact, I'm gonna tell you a story here in a second that I got to tell everybody else, and maybe some people out there actually already know this story because they actually heard me on local sports talk radio having to give a certain former Ohio State football player a little what for because he was poo-pooing this Rose Bowl. And saying that the Rose Bowl is it doesn't matter anymore. In fact, all other bowl games out there don't matter anymore. They're not significant because essentially you're just playing for what? You're playing for nothing. You're not playing for national championship. You're just going out to California to play in the Rose Bowl. And I had to lace into him, and I'll get into more detail here in a minute. But to that point, other people as well. I heard poo-pooing this Rose Bowl. And I think it's because a lot of people out there see 3 losses next to Washington. And they don't take into account the fact that they are the Pac-12 champion. And they were, pre-ranked, like you said, 6th in the nation. Now, obviously, being pre-ranked and how you finish are 2 totally different things. But, yeah, they were being looked at as kind of one of those teams that had a shot to play for the national championship. Didn't work out for them. But of those 3 losses, Chris, 10 total points. 10 total points in all 3 of those losses. So it's not like this was a Washington team that was getting their clocks cleaned at any point. Purdue, and unfortunately it was against teams that ended up, I think all 3 teams that they lost to, Oregon, Cal, and Auburn, all ended up going like 8-5 or 7-6, something like that. So the teams that they lost to, on paper didn't end up being very good. But that Auburn game at the beginning of the year, I mean, that was 2 top 10 teams going at it. Right. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think Auburn was like 8th or 9th in the country in that game. Washington was 6th. They lost by 5 points. They lost in overtime to Oregon, who I think at the time when Oregon beat them, Oregon only had like 1 or 2 losses. That was a crazy upset that Oregon pulled out. And then they somehow lost to Cal by 2 points, 12-10. Like, I don't know how that happened to Washington. They somehow lose to Cal, but nonetheless, I mean, they lose to teams that had winning records, not too outstanding on paper, but still 3 losses by a total of 10 points. And I think some people are discounting Washington because of those 3 losses. And I think also Washington's just not a sexy name right now, right? Okay, I get it. They did make the college football playoff, 2 years ago? In fact, it was the year that 2016, the year Ohio State made it. Washington made it that year, and, they got beat decisively by Alabama in the semifinal round, but still, it's not a sexy name. It's not like an Alabama. It's not like a Clemson. It's not even like an Oklahoma, or an undefeated Notre Dame. It incenses me, man, because there are people out there who are like, the Rose Bowl doesn't mean anything. And I get it. I get it. Okay, you're right. Ohio State's not playing for a national championship, but damn it, what else can you do? What else can you say? I mean, they went 12-1. They won the Big Ten championship, and 13 people in a room, or more like 12, because Gene Smith, I think they had Gene Smith and 2 other people for some reason weren't allowed to sit in on the discussions when they were talking about Ohio State. So technically, 10 people in a room decided that Ohio State was not good enough to make the college football Final Four. All right, and folks, I don't know what to tell you then. Then you know what? If the Rose Bowl sucks, then why go? Why go? Why go out there and play in the granddaddy of them all? Why are we even caring to watch Ohio State play Washington in the Rose Bowl? And I'm sure there are probably people out there who are like, I don't care. I'm not going to watch the game. But I guarantee you this, Chris. I guarantee you this, because it seems like every friggin' time Ohio State is on TV, they always shatter some sort of viewing ratings record. And I guarantee you, dude, that out of all the bowl games being played, even the semifinal games tonight, that Ohio State's Rose Bowl ratings will beat the college football playoff semifinals and all the other bowl games out there. I guarantee it, dude. You want to know why? Because Ohio State fans are all over the friggin' place, and I would gamble to say there are probably the most Ohio State fans of any other college out there, period, bar none, all over the friggin' world. And we love to watch our Buckeyes play and win.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, and I can almost guarantee, though, that you are like me, where you do not feel that this is an insignificant football game, even if it is against a 10-3 Washington football team.
So here's the thing: like, does Ohio the Rose Bowl matter? You know, and I think for the people who say it doesn't matter, these are the people who they're viewing it as
the millennials,
like national championship or bust.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
And, you know, there's 130 teams that play. 120 of those teams don't even really think ever that they have a shot at the national title. they still manage to somehow have seasons that, you know, are satisfactory. They find reasons to play, and they're like, oh, this isn't meaningless. For me, I don't buy that it's national championship or bust. I mean, Ohio State has 6, 7 national titles in their 100 and some years. So you're telling me, and Ohio State is like one of the most successful programs ever, you know? I mean, they've got just ridiculous amount of wins if you're going to look at it from a wins perspective, and even from a national title perspective.
Yeah.
They're one of the best ever. Are you telling me that they failed? I guess they started playing in the 1890s. So we'll say roughly 130 years of football, 124 years. They've been abject failures. In 6 years, they were the only years where they had a successful season. And you're telling me that this is one of the premier programs when they're, sixth in 124 is their ratio of good seasons to bad. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's people need to appreciate what they had in front of them. I mean, this is a golden age of Ohio State football right now. I mean, look at when they won. I was looking at the years when they won national titles, and we have I think it was an 11-year span between 2002 and 2014, or a 12-year span, 2 national titles. And you look back over the 6 national titles, and they never had, in a 12-year span, more than 2 national titles. Never once in that span, in the 130 years of football, did they go in this 12-year period? They had 3, or you know what I mean? 2 is as good as it gets in a 12-year span for Ohio State. So it's as good as it gets in that regard. They're now 14-1 versus Michigan in the last 15 years. That's kind of as good as it gets. Not kind of. That's you're never going to find a 15-year span in the history of Ohio State football where they've got 14 wins versus who. All the conference titles since 2000 and since Tressel took over, since 2001, it's been a ridiculous number of conference titles. I don't have the exact number in front. I think Tressel won 7 and Myers got 3. Is that right? Something like that. So
no, wait, say that again. As far as conference.
Yeah, so Big Ten titles. They've got 7. Tressel won 7, and I think Myers got 3.
Well, Meyer, let's see, 2012 he couldn't, 13 he lost, 14 he won, 15 didn't play.
He's got the last 2 years in a row.
Didn't play, and then last 2, so he's got 3. Yeah. So
10 since 2002. So 10 in a 16-year span. That's pretty high percentage of conference. You know what I mean? It's could you look at any other 16-year span in Ohio State's illustrious history and see where they won 10 Big Ten titles?
That's what I'm saying, man.
It's this is the golden age, man. Enjoy it. Enjoy
it. Exactly. People lose their friggin' mind because Ohio State, one terrible loss to a sucky team who ended up getting crushed in their bowl game. yesterday. I get it. All right. Purdue, no business losing to a 6-6 Purdue team that ended up going 6-7 on the year. And like I said, just got flattened in their bowl game. But it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. And Chris, you're absolutely right. I mean, come on, Buckeye Nation. Enjoy what's sitting in front of you. When you take a step back, okay, and you look at the overall picture, okay, I guarantee you that how many other teams in the Big Ten would love to be playing in the Rose Bowl and don't even give a shit about playing for a national championship right now and would just love to be in the Rose Bowl? You think Purdue would love to have won the conference and be playing in the Rose Bowl? Northwestern? Wisconsin?
How about Michigan?
How about Michigan?
We're talking, that is the Big Two, right? Supposedly.
Yeah, the Big Two and the little, 12 now? But,
I mean, the other co-member of the Big Two would swap places with Ohio State in about 2. You think they wouldn't have loved to have beaten their rivals by multiple touchdowns and be playing in the Rose Bowl right now and have a conference title? Yeah. I mean, my God. Let alone like all these like lesser schools that don't have the illustrious histories of a Michigan or an Ohio State.
Exactly.
It's for me, and I've said this multiple times, I learned a big lesson in 2015 because 2015 was probably the most talented football team Ohio State has ever had. And they went 12-1. And I think they lost by a last second field goal in the rain to Michigan State.
At home. Yep.
And I was freaking miserable that whole season. And I'm like, I said to myself after that season, never again will I be miserable watching an Ohio State team that's like amazing. Why, if so, why am I wasting my freaking time? There are better options for entertainment. There are more enjoyable options for entertainment out there for me. If I'm just gonna be miserable watching Ohio State, I might as well I might as well put on a Marvel or DC movie and have a good time. You know what I mean? It's like what? Find a nice comedy. What's a good comedy out there? Go to a comedy club. There's all kinds of things I could do that would be much more entertaining and enjoyable than sitting there being depressed while Ohio State destroys their rival in a historical manner. You know what I mean? It's like it's just I never again. So I've been enjoying it even with the crappy defense. I'm sitting back and I'm marveling at these high-scoring games. Like, wow, that was really exciting, beating Maryland 52-51. Losing. I knew I was freaking alive when Maryland went for that 2-point conversion, and my heart rate is racing. I'm like, man, this is what it feels like to be alive right here. What an experience! I just enjoyed it, And I'm like, yeah, would I have wanted them to have not been in that situation? Sure, but I was not going to let this, my favorite form of entertainment, my Ohio State Buckeyes, to be something I don't enjoy. It's just, so that's where I'm at. This brings up another point, actually. People are like, oh, I'm not into the Rose Bowl because, they didn't make the playoffs. It's meaningless. I'm like, look at Ohio State's season. Is it clear that they were one of the top 4 teams? Is it clear that they deserve to be there? I don't think it's clear. I mean, I can make an argument, and I made the argument that they're one of the top 4 teams, and I think that they could beat an Alabama with, if they get cooking on that offense. I'd like to see Alabama try to stop that offense when it's hitting on all cylinders. I would like to see that.
Anybody stop this offense.
Do they clearly deserve to be there? Are they clearly top 4? No. I don't think so. I mean, they were mediocre, scraping by the Marylands and some of these other teams that, looking poor for a lot of the season and getting hammered by a 6-7, Purdue team.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, well, that's probably where they deserve to be. The Rose Bowl is actually a pretty good outcome for them, given what their resume is coming into the postseason.
One loss. I mean, one damn loss. And once again, a terrible loss. But, one damn loss. We get to go play in the Rose Bowl, a bowl game that we haven't seen them play in almost 10 years. And it's going to be Urban's first time and last time ever coaching in the Rose Bowl. This has got to be the pinnacle of his career. All right. Yeah, he already won 3 national championships. He won one with Ohio State. He won 2 with Florida. He never, ever got to coach in the Rose Bowl. And don't sit here and tell me and tell these guys on the team and tell Urban Meyer that playing in this Rose Bowl doesn't matter. Because if it didn't matter, Chris, then why is Draymond Jones and Mike Weber already announcing that they're going to be going to the NFL, yet they're coming back to play one last game? Now, is that because this is Urban's last game and they want to win one more for the Gipper? Yeah. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But let me ask you this, Chris. Do you think that Draymond Jones and Mike Weber, if they knew that this was Urban's last game and they're playing in the Belk Bowl or the Little Caesars Bowl or the Roto-Rooter Toilet Bowl, that that those guys are going to come back and play one last game, even knowing that it's Urban's last game? I could almost sit here and say, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of guys who are going to the NFL who are not going to come back and play in the Belk Bowl, the Roto-Rooter Toilet Bowl, even if it was Urban's last game. I don't think they would. I don't know about you, but I don't think they would. And I think because it's a combination of the two, Urban and it being the Rose Bowl, yeah, that's how much the Rose Bowl means.
Yeah, you probably are right. I mean, who knows? I do know that, like, Draymond, for example, has said stuff about, like, he would never let his brothers down. He, like, couldn't fathom letting his brothers down at the, like, the climax of the season. But maybe it's not a climax if they're playing in the toilet bowl. You know what I mean? So
I know. So I had to call up a local radio show. Let me get to this story, and then we'll actually start talking about this Rose Bowl. I had to call up a local sports talk radio show, and I get on the air. And they said, who am I talking to? And I said, it's Andy Evans with Columbus Wired. I had to throw it out there. I was with Columbus Wired. And probably nobody really picked up on that out in the, But at any rate, Andy Evans with Columbus Wired. And he said, well, Andy Evans with Columbus Wired, what's on your mind? I said, well, I just wanted to touch on, and I said the guy's name, his skewed perception of reality, and he's off his friggin' rocker if he thinks that this Rose Bowl doesn't mean anything. And they started laughing, and then this guy starts in on me and like, no, hold up, blah, 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 blah. And he starts chirping, and he gets done, and I'm like, dude, are you telling me that Ohio State, with the ability to go 13-1, Big Ten champs, and win a Rose Bowl means nothing? You're saying that playing in this Rose Bowl means nothing? I was like, come on, dude, you played at Ohio State. You played in this Rose Bowl, okay? He did play in the Rose Bowl. He started in the Rose Bowl. He didn't finish the Rose Bowl, but he started. That might give you an indication and a clue as to who I'm talking about. And they basically then cut me off after my tirade. Not because wow, this guy needs cut off, but they were getting to other calls and whatnot. And this guy even said after they hung up the phone, he was like, man, I wish you would have kept him on because I had a few more things to ask him and say to him. The majority of the people that were calling in were like, dude, you're right, man. You're right. I don't care to see Ohio State play Washington in the Rose Bowl because we're not playing for national championship. And I'm a friggin' stupid moron. Dude, just like you said, Chris, look at the totality of Ohio State football and enjoy this golden age, this kind of post-Woody golden age of football. But the fact that it's Urban's last game, last time we're going to see him roaming the sidelines, and it's in the Rose Bowl, come on, people. I'm excited, man. I am fired up to see this football game. And to your point, Washington, they're not going to be a pushover, dude. They are not going to be a pushover. I did my homework on them, looked at them as far as stats, both in the Pac-12 and nationally. And, a lot of people are talking about their defense. And so I really dug in a little bit deeper on their defense. And I thought, okay, their defense is like a bend but don't break kind of defense.
Right.
But they're not too opportunistic, Chris. They 19 sacks on the season.
And usually only when they blitz. They basically have to blitz to get pressure.
And that's the thing. Yeah, they have
Which
to
means
blitz.
they're going to leave somebody open for one Mr. Haskins, Dwayne Heisman.
Exactly. So, Chris, what do you think the chances are of Dwayne Haskins and the boys lighting them up?
Well, so can they light them up, or what are the chances that they light them up? So it depends on what you mean by lighting them up. If you mean 62 points, what are the chances they get 62? Probably not real great. So, well, because here's the thing. So there's two things I wanted to say about this, about the offense versus the defense, which is the great premier matchup. You've got the number two offense in the country going against like a top 10 level defense, and they have all these advanced stats now. And one of the things that's kind of interesting is they have like explosive offense versus like methodical. Do you bust off a 50-yard run, or do you move the chains, 10 yards here, 8 yards there, whatever, and methodically move down the field and score? Which kind of an offense are you, and which kind of a defense are you? Are you really good at stopping explosive teams or methodical teams? And when you look at the advanced stats, Washington is like elite at shutting down explosive teams. Like they've hardly given up any big plays. They make you like move the sticks methodically down the field. And in which case, like you said, Ben, but don't break, most teams can't finish it off when you do that. Meanwhile, Ohio State, as good as they are, it's number 2 statistically overall, they're actually much more a methodical team than they are an explosive team. Now, they do get, we had quite a few of those little pop pass to Paris Campbell, which he just outraces everyone for a 60-yard run, or I guess technically a screen pass or a shovel pass. But they have some of those. But for the most part, they're doing like crossing routes and screens and the like slants and just moving the chains. So and then in that part of their game, Washington is much closer to just like an average team at shutting down methodical offense. So it kind of is a good matchup in a lot of ways for Ohio State. And like I was saying, they don't really generate much of a pass rush. Now, where I will say that Washington is amazing on defense is their secondary. It's probably the best cornerbacks Ohio State has seen all year. So the wide receivers are going to have their hands full. That's going to be one of the premier matchups to watch. Some of the best wide receivers in the country, probably the best wide receiver core as a whole that Ohio State's had maybe ever. 1 through 6. You'd be hard pressed to find a group of receivers 1 through 6 that were as good as this group Ohio State has now. I mean, they got 3 freaking captains, for God's sakes, exactly. A wide receiver. I mean, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
And then they're going against NFL cornerbacks. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. That's why I'm saying they're not necessarily going to be a pushover. But
right. So
man, I am fired up.
Yeah. So that's one point is it's not necessarily a terrible matchup for Ohio State. I think they maybe kind of match up well. The other thing is when you have great offense versus great defense, the great offense trumps it. This is typically the case, and it's like this in basketball. You got, Michael Jordan shooting up over top of Craig Elo. There's tons of instances of this, of, LeBron James going in the paint and the guy's right there, the defender's right there. And he just puts it in anyway, because great offense trumps great defense. And it's the same way, the cornerback can be right there, perfect coverage. But if it's a perfect throw and perfect execution, the guy goes up and catches a fade pass one-handed in the back of the end zone, the defense can be right there doing everything right, and it's still a touchdown. So I do think great offense trumps great defense. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, will Washington be able to slow Ohio State down? Probably. They're not going to go out and do like they did to Oregon State and put up, a 70-point kind of game. But are they going to hold them under 30? I don't think so. And is Washington, as bad as Ohio State's defense has been at times this year, is Washington going to be able to put up enough points to keep up with Ohio State? Let's say Ohio State scores 35. Can Washington get 36? I mean, you're talking about a team that didn't have a freaking offensive touchdown in the last game they just played versus Utah. They beat Utah 10-3 and they had a pick 6 in that game. It's like you look back
Utah
over the years.
Is like that was also a matchup, and I get what you're saying, but that was a matchup in that Pac-12 championship game between like the 2 best defenses in the conference.
Well, I mean, when have they scored over 35 the whole year? So versus Oregon State, they beat them 42-23, but Oregon State is terrible.
averaging 28 points a game.
Averaging 28. They beat Cal, or they lost to Cal 12-10. 12-10.
Yeah, 12-10.
Let's see here. I mean, they lost to Auburn 21-16.
How many times have they scored over, what'd you say, 35?
35. So they did Oregon State one game.
North Dakota, they scored 45 points.
North Dakota 40. So those are the only 2 games they scored over 35.
Well, and they did score exactly 35 against BYU.
Right. So I guess in that one they would, if Ohio State is 35 and they give a BYU performance, then they go to overtime. Okay. But yeah, it's like I don't know, man. I just don't see them getting. I don't see them holding Ohio State less than 35, and I don't see them scoring more than 35, if that makes sense. It's just, I mean, crazier things have happened. I mean, Maryland was like the 99th offense in the country and put up 51 points. So crazier. but here's the other thing too, though. Maryland was a terrible matchup for Ohio State. Now, going back to that methodical versus explosive thing, Ohio State's defense versus, as far as giving up explosive plays, are awful. They're like freaking so terrible. I mean, they've given up like historically bad, right, by Ohio State standards. They gave up 7 touchdown plays of 75 yards or more over the course of this season, including a new record long of 93-yard touchdowns. And they had a pass they gave up to Penn State for 93 yards as well. They have 5 plays of 50 yards or longer versus Maryland alone. 5 plays of 50 yards or longer. So versus teams that get and Maryland's an offense that's really good at hitting home runs. They're an explosive. They got crazy athletes at the skill positions, and they exploited some matchups there, and Ohio State didn't adjust, and they're like, well, meanwhile, Washington's offense is a little bit more like a straightforward up the gut kind of offense. They're more like a Michigan State or a Michigan style where they're not that explosive offense. They're not, now having said that, they're probably going to get a play of 60 yards in this game just because that's what Ohio State does.
Because that's what Ohio State does.
But I just don't see them. I don't see them pulling out like a Maryland and getting 51. It's not the same kind of offense as a Maryland. So, and then you got the Urban Meyer factor where like the players, Urban, it's his last game. And, a lot of times in bowl games, they get a camp, basically. They get an extra camp. You have spring camp, you have summer camp. They basically have a bowl camp where they get, 10 practices, 12 practices, whatever it is, some number that's a lot. And they use it. A lot of it is spent on just like working on fundamentals and getting guys ready for next year. A lot of the young guys get more reps than they normally would because you don't want to burn out your starters and all this stuff. And it's a good way for guys to get a leg up on the next season, the new guys that are going to be fighting for playing time. And again, like the youngins, right, to make a big leap. That gives them an opportunity to make a leap because they're getting more snaps than they do during the course of the regular season, where week to week, you're just preparing for the next team. Well, listening to like program insiders, they said like, this has been all about preparing for Washington. They're not taking this as a camp, working on fundamentals, working on, it's game planning, like 12 practices of game planning. Like Urban Meyer's like, hey man, this is my last game. There is no tomorrow. Yeah, there is no spring.
Well, and you know
we
what?
are preparing for this freaking Rose Bowl to win this motherfucker. And so that's an interesting thing. Like, I'm like, wow, that's they're going to be well prepared for this game, and you would think motivated.
Yeah,
want to win one for the Gipper, as you put it.
Absolutely, and I would expect that's how Urban and this coaching staff are approaching this game. I mean, yeah, this is it. This is it, Urban. You're done, supposedly, right? I mean, you're done, at least at Ohio State. So give it all you got. And that's why I expect, Chris, Ohio State to win this football game. I don't expect Washington to lay down. I don't. I expect them to give Ohio State a football game. But I just don't see Urban going out with an L. Do you?
Well, if he loses, he might be back. Did you hear him? Did you hear him in one of the press conferences? He said he had a comment like, had he lost to Michigan, that he wouldn't have retired. He's like, I'm not going out like that. Like,
I did not hear him.
Yeah, he's like, that's not going to be my legacy. He's like, had I lost to Michigan, he's like, I would be back next season. And I was like, I'm like, damn, this guy. I mean, he's like, he's retiring, quote unquote retiring. He's leaving the game because of health reasons, and he is so passionate about that rivalry, about the school, and about his legacy that he was not going, even with bad health, he was going to come back and coach next year if he lost Michigan. He's like, no, I'm not going out that way.
Wow. And that's the competitor in him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Let's talk about health. So we got, have you heard Mumford at practice? Like, they only allow the media in for glimpses of these practices, right? They're not allowed at all the practices, just like a select one or
like
two.
half an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
1 or 2, and it's a half hour. But like Munford was like sitting on a freaking cart right next to Demetrius Knox while all the offensive linemen were practicing.
Yeah.
Not doing warm-ups, not stretching or anything, because other guys that were injured were at least like out there, like maybe they weren't maybe like in contact drills or anything, but they were at least doing something, some rehab, some PT, he's like sitting on a cart next to Demetrius Knox. So, we already have Demetrius Knox out. Wyatt Davis has 1 start under his belt. Alabi would, however, do you know how to say that guy's name? That needs to be
I think it's Alabi.
Alabi. So, Alabi has played a couple times when Mumford went out this year for little stretches and looked good when he was in there. So there's at least that. Honestly, he looked better than like Demetrius Knox and Malcolm Pridgeon did. There were some people that were calling for like, okay, it looks to me like Alabi is one of our top 5 offensive linemen. Can we maybe get him in that starting lineup somehow? Because when he came in for Mumford, they didn't miss a beat. Well, meanwhile, Knox and Pridgeon are getting knocked around in there. But at any rate, I don't know that we're going to be hurt too bad, but still that's, 40% of your starting lineup could be out. If Mumford doesn't go, Mumford was good. He kept Haskins clean as that left tackle. I don't think people talked about him enough. What a good, you almost heard nothing about him, which is of course like a sign that an offensive lineman is doing a great job. When you're left tackle, you don't hear anything about him. It means he's not getting blown up by the team's elite pass rushers, because that's who he's having to face, protecting the quarterback's blind side. He's shutting them down, and he's not committing false starts. He's not holding. He's not face masking. He just went out there and did his job. So that's a big blow. I do think it's not catastrophic because Alabi has looked good when he came in and replaced him, and Alabi has had some, has been getting reps with the twos all year long and reps in games when Mumford went out. And, at least when the media was there watching practice, Alabi was getting all the snaps with the first team. So, I think that, it's not like a dire straight situation, but it's a blow. You couple that with, Wyatt Davis only getting his second start and Alabi getting his first start. Do you think that offensive line is going to be able to handle the stellar Washington defensive front with 2 of their starters out, Andy?
Is their defensive line any good? Like you said, it doesn't. 19 sacks on the year for this defense, and the only time they can get it done is if they're blitzing. So does Washington come with a heavy blitz because they know that now Ohio State's missing 2 starters on the offensive line? And can guys like Wyatt Davis and Josh Alabi fill the void for these 2 guys and handle extra pressure if it's brought?
Right. So, like you said, the defensive line really doesn't get a lot of sacks. I do know they run like a 3-4. So the defensive line, it's basically, you've got a nose tackle who's just eating up blocks, and 2, they're large defensive ends, but it's almost like a 3 tackle front. And they're designed just to eat up blocks to free up the 4 linebackers to make some noise. So what does that mean as far as 2 offensive linemen out for the Buckeyes? I'm not sure. I do know at next level at the linebackers, they got this kid named Ben Burr-Kirven. He leads the nation, Andy, with 165 tackles.
Yeah, this guy's a beast.
Holy crap. 165. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's
first team All-American, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, this kid's a stud.
Yeah, that's getting it done right there. And then they got, like I said, their secondary is really good with guys like Byron Murphy and safety Taylor Rapp. That Murphy guy had the 66-yard interception return in the Pac-12 championship. Yeah. And, nationally, they're 20th against the pass, only giving up 185 yards per game. Defense versus the rush, they're actually 16th in the country. So, in Ohio State, while they're a stellar passing team, had just been fairly mediocre at rushing the ball, going against the number 16 running team in the country with 2 offensive linemen out. They might need good old Dwayne Heisman to, throw 45, 50 passes to win this game. We'll see if they can get it done on the ground. I don't know.
Well, this is going to be an interesting game too. Yeah. Cause I think everybody feels that Ohio State, Dwayne Haskins, Dwayne Heisman, and all the receivers and blah, blah, blah. Like Ohio State's game plan is to come out and just go nuts through the air and throw it all over Washington. Well, as we just said, you look at Washington's defense, and it's one of the better, passing defenses in the country. They're like 19th in the country overall in total yards allowed. And I think they're like 4th in the country. I can't remember. It was like some like defensive passing defense efficiency or something. But I do know that, Chris, that they lead the country defensively in yards per completion. And I think like they're like, it was like yards per completion. So take that with a grain of salt. If receiver catches a pass, they're tackling them, or they're keeping teams from explosive plays, like you said.
Right.
This is a defense that likes to limit explosive teams, and they've been able to do it pretty well this year. So with that being said, Ohio State may have to try and run the football, and they've had their issues running the football this year, but we've seen them, get it done. Weber does have 700 some yards this year. Dobbins is over 1,000. So they can get it done on the ground, but this is a Washington defense on the ground that can also get it done as well. So Ohio State's going to be up against it, It's just how focused are they going to be? Are they going to have that level of focus and intensity when taking on this kind of defense like they did a la the smelly rodents? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and Northwestern had a really good defense too. Even TCU was a pretty good defensive team, and they still lit up the scoreboard. So I don't think you're going to – I think like the best case scenario for Washington is they hold Ohio State to 35. That's pretty good. Holding this explosive offense below 40 is about the best you can hope for. And like I said,
that's the thing. Washington's offense, very, very average. At least you look at them on paper. But once again, like we just said a few minutes ago, Ohio State has that propensity for allowing mediocre offenses to just explode all over our friggin' face, and we make them look like superstars. And let's face it, they do have a kid at quarterback, Jake Browning, that, he's good, but I think Jake Browning got a lot of hype when he came in and started playing.
Dude.
He's mobile, and he's got a decent arm, but you look at his stats, and really, they're not that outstanding. They're okay.
All right, this is something we should spend some time talking about, because this is kind of an interesting storyline.
Yeah.
So
Jake Browning, I'm just not overly impressed. You?
So Browning has he started every game in his career. He's a senior, He started every game but one. I want to say 53 starts, something like that. 50 something.
That I don't know off the top of my head, but
I'll
take your word for it.
His freshman year, guess how many touchdowns he had his freshman year?
Like total rushing, passing?
Total, yeah.
43.
Oh my God, are you looking at it? That's it, on the nose.
Is it really?
Yeah, he guessed it on the nose.
No, I swear to God.
As a senior, he had 19. So, less than half.
Is that just because they're running the ball more and like he's handing it off?
I don't know, but he had people when he came in his freshman year at 43, people were like, this guy's going to rewrite the record books. Because typically you make a lot of, your freshman year is far from how good you are by the time you're a senior. You make some strides, right? And they're like, this guy's going to rewrite all the record books. He was, considered to be like on the Heisman watch lists for a while. Because people expected there to be growth, and it just didn't happen. And so that just all kind of fell to the wayside.
Yeah, you know what? This is kind of funny. Just to interject real quick, I'm looking at his bio on Washington's official football page. 2016 and 2017, he was a Davy O'Brien Award semifinalist. 2016, he was also up for the Maxwell Trophy. He was a semifinalist. He was a Manning Award finalist. Walter Camp finalist in 2016, and then you get to 2018 and he got all Pac-12 honorable mention, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, he completely regressed, or digressed, or whatever you want to say, as his career went along. That's crazy.
Yes, but it's interesting. But he again, you're talking a guy with 50+ starts. Kind of, the people have drawn comparisons to JT Barrett. Not an amazing arm, but can pass the ball. Not an amazing runner, but can run the ball. And Ohio State has been hurt by quarterbacks that can keep the play alive by scrambling, which he's pretty good at. I mean, see like Peyton Ramsey from Indiana or Trace McSorley from Penn State, this kind of stuff has happened in the past, right? And, he's got 50+ starts. So, I mean, this guy, he's not going to get rattled. He's seen it all. And he's handing the ball off to a running back, Myles Gaskins, who's the first Pac-12 rusher ever to have 4 1,000-yard seasons. So, I mean, you want to talk about some guys that have, some experience right there, that combo. And I think that I want to say their tight end or their wide receiver or something like that. So they have a receiver who's a 4-year starter as well. So it's like at all 3 of those skill positions, they've got some serious people there. But we should probably talk about the tight end position, because starting for tight end for the Huskies at tight end is your friend of mine, Drew Sample. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I did see. I was watching that Pac-12 championship game, and they were talking about Drew Sample, and I was like, wait, what? Did they just say his name was Drew Sample? Because, I saw the name on the back of the jersey, and I'm like, nah, they must have said something else. And then a few minutes later, Drew Sample. I'm like, son of a bitch. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But
when it comes to this Washington offense, I'm not impressed with Jake Browning. Once again, I mean, he started off, gangbusters. And since then, has really cooled off. You look at this Washington offense on paper, they're 8th overall in the conference in scoring. They're 8th in points per game, 8th in total offense, 8th in yards per game. 11th, dude, 11th out of 12 teams passing. This cannot be right. I mean, seriously, like, I'm looking.
Where meanwhile, Ohio State's had 10 games of 500 yards or more, including 4 of 600 yards or more.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Browning, dude, has thrown. I mean, he threw for 2,800 yards this year, 16 touchdowns and 10 picks, and he ran for a career season high, 141 yards and 4 touchdowns for Jake Browning this year. And once again, passing 2,879 yards, 16 touchdowns and 10 picks. So, but what kind of defense are we going to see Ohio State come out with? I think, like you said, if Washington can somehow hold this Ohio State offense to under 40 points, they've got a chance. Mm-hmm. I think, crazy as it sounds to say, they've got a chance, especially if they can hold them to under 4 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? 24, 28 points. But then again, their offense has got to be able to score, and I'm not impressed with their offense.
Yeah.
But I have this feeling that even though it's Urban's last game, I see a close one. It's the Rose Bowl, Granddaddy of Them All. Chris Peterson, he's going to have his boys fired up and ready to go. I see Ohio State scoring. I think they do score. I think they're going to score about 38 points. But once again, Washington's mediocre offense, Ohio State's going to make them look good, and Washington's going to put some points on the board. And they're going to be like, wow, we've never looked this great all year. Well, because you didn't play Ohio State's defense most of the time. You're playing those awesome Pac-12 defenses, like Oregon State and Cal and all those awesome Pac-12 defenses out there. I think it's a 38 to. I think it's like a 38 to 29 ball game. Like, it's going to be some dumb score. Actually, I'm going to go 38-28 Ohio State final score.
Well, this is why I hate you, because I actually had Ohio State scoring 38 as well.
Nah. All right, I'll say
no, it's okay. It's okay.
I'll say 39.
Okay. No, I'm going to have to adjust. So I at least had 38-24. You can say
38 too. It's a free world. I mean, just because I guessed 38 doesn't mean you can't guess 38 too.
What fun is that?
Okay, you're right.
Then we're either both right or we're both wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'd much rather have there be the opportunity for one of us to be right and one to be wrong. All right. I've been using the number 35 a lot this game, so I'm gonna go back to that and say 35. I think 35 is, but the thing is, I feel like they're gonna get more than that. I feel like that's like the low end. So like probably. Let's give them another touchdown. I'm gonna go 42. I'm gonna go 41. Give them 2 field goals.
Oh, okay.
I'm not that 35. They'll top the 35 by 2 field goals. So I'm gonna go 41-24. They eclipse that 40-point mark, and I just don't think that Washington's gonna top 30, let alone 40. So 41-24, a nice little 17-point victory. Send Urban off in the sunset. I see him riding on the tops of players' shoulders.
Oh yeah,
and with a rose in his mouth. So,
oh man,
that's my call.
Oh, as skeptical as I was about Urban Meyer, at least as far as, quite frankly, from what do I want to say? From a standpoint of whether he was going to be able to keep kids in line. And whether, dude, when he was down at Florida, man, kids were getting arrested left and right. You know what I'm saying? Dudes were getting into trouble all the time.
Oh, yeah.
He came up here, and it was like a 180 from that attitude.
Yeah.
That just kind of laissez-faire, blase, whatever. Yeah,
grades,
it's all
too.
good. Do what you want. Grades,
academically, Ohio State's been killing it in this football program.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it, but like I think academically, I think it may be as good as it's ever been under Urban. Like better than Tressel, better than Cooper, better than, Woody, whatever, you go all the way back. He's, the GPAs, the number of academic, all conference players. It's been stellar. Another measure.
I know.
He's graduating players at like, I want to say it's like a historical rate, which is impressive because he has so many people leave early for the NFL.
Yeah.
Like every year he loses kids to the NFL, but yet he's graduating players at a higher rate than anybody else.
Yeah. I was very impressed that he came in here and did not do the same things that he did down at Florida.
Yeah.
Because I was skeptical, dude, at first. I'm like, man, Urban Meyer, Ohio guy, proven winner. I get it. He beat Ohio State. I get it. But I'm a little skeptical, man. Look at his track record down there at Florida, and yeah, he did not allow those shenanigans. Now, of course, we want to get into the whole Courtney Zach Smith debate. Let's not. That's old news, and obviously we talked about that ad nauseum. But at any rate,
what are a few sex toys among the office?
Hey, you know what? Doesn't everybody have a few sex toys laying around the office?
I don't know why you wouldn't ship them to your office. Why would you ship, that's the natural choice, right?
Right, exactly. Well, you know what though? Let's define sex toy. Was it just a stapler? Maybe a stapler can be used in a weird way. May not feel the best, but
maybe you're into pain.
Pencils, Sharpies. Anything can be construed as a sex toy.
Oh my God. I'm going to keep my mouth shut with the Sharpies thing.
Oh, man. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another rousing edition of the Buckeye Leafcast, and we appreciate you guys downloading this edition of the show. And Chris, before we jump off the microphones, anything you'd like to tell the fine folk out there? Or maybe was there something that we forgot to talk about you want to throw in there?
Oh, God, there's tons of stuff we could talk about. We could have did a whole show on the Justin Fields thing. Matthew Baldwin's cleared and is actually practicing after being injured. You got Brian Sneed not making the trip and like the allegations there.
I think Brian Sneed's.
Yeah, I think so too. But there's all kinds of stuff we could talk about, but I think that's enough for now. I will just say that, as always, if you're interested in personal development, I do have a personal development podcast, Choice Conversations, choiceconversations.com. Google Choice Conversations, go on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever your podcast app is, and search for Choice Conversations. Any of those places you'll find me, and I will do my best to help you improve your life. So check it out. Choice Conversations.
This edition of the Buckeye Leafcast also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's also brought to you by Columbus Wired, for your premier source for Central Ohio sports above and beyond. Visit us at columbuswired.net. So there you go, Chris. You got 41-24. I've got 38-28, both of us. Buckeyes win. Kerry Urban off the field. Rose in his mouth. Tears in his eyes, I guess. Cinderella boy coming out of nowhere. About to win the Rose Bowl. And on that note, let's leave like we always do. OH, go Bucks!